I'm here outside Beijing to drive this, the brand new Li L9. I'm Will, that is the L9, and this is China Driven. Self-development is a common theme for the Li Auto L9. Whether it's their EREV system, their chassis, or their ADAS features, it's all tuned in-house. And Li Auto says that's what helps them beat their competition, who use outside tuning help for their powertrain chassis and ADAS features. By Li Auto doing it themselves, they say they're able to dial in exactly what they want. And what they want is what Chinese consumers want. And how do they know what Chinese consumers want? Well, that's because Li Auto's CEO and founder, Li Xiang, is actually the founder of the world's largest auto platform online. It's called Autohome. It does a wide range of things, including selling cars online, reviews, car testing, and it's a thriving online car community. And therefore, Li Auto has access to decades of knowledge about what Chinese car consumers like and what they don't like. And this is what Li Auto says is the best family car on the Chinese market. I've been driving this car all day. We started this morning on the outskirts of Beijing and we drove to here for well over an hour and a half on the motorway using its NOA system. And it was one of, if not the easiest motorway drives I've ever done. The NOA never disengaged. I disengaged it once or twice, but I was being overly cautious. I probably never needed to disengage it at all. Okay, so driving the Li L9 on the motorway in NOA has to be one of the easiest motorway drives I've ever done. The system just gets on and does what it needs to do. It will drive you from ETC gate to ETC gate. There's toll booth to toll booth. And really, the car hasn't had to disengage at all. I've disengaged it because I've been overly cautious, like I said, but probably I didn't have to. Obviously, you have to keep your eyes on what is going on and always be ready to take over. It's not hands off, you've got to have a hand on the steering wheel, but it does what it needs to do very confidently, and it gives you a lot of confidence in the system, and that really allows you to relax a little bit and let it do most of the heavy lifting. And obviously you've got the heads-up display in front of you which shows you your NOA. It shows you the road speed, whether NOA is on, what current speed you've got set as your kind of max travel speed, and then it's also got your navigation as well. It's all right in front of you. It's actually really quite relaxing behind here. The weather was really good and the traffic was light, so it wasn't the most taxing situation for the AD Max system to deal with. And in all fairness, the system handled the 1 hour highway drive perfectly. My 1 or 2 disengagements early on were due to passing a couple of wide trucks and being unfamiliar with the width of the L9. So we can put that down to me being overly cautious, not being familiar with the car or the ADAS system. As time went on, I felt a lot more comfortable to let the system do its job uninterrupted. Hands on the wheel, alert and ready to take over, of course. Now obviously I don't have any music on or anything like that, but the road noise is actually quite good. Obviously, you know, we're traveling 120, so there is obviously some road noise going to be here. The engine is actually on, not that I've even really noticed. The only time driving this car that I've noticed the engine at all is when we were driving up a slight mounting road and really kind of stepping on it, you start to hear a little bit of the engine in the background, but again, no music on. If you had a bit of music on, you wouldn't even hear it. There aren't really any vibrations passed by the engine. It is very well kind of hidden away in the background. You hardly even notice it being on when you're in hybrid mode. And obviously when you're in electric mode, it's obviously not making any noise because it's not being used at all. And then the car is, of course, absolutely very quiet. We drove in hybrid mode for the majority of the day, and cruising around I forgot the engine was even on. I'd have to listen real close to hear a faint distant rumble. Li Auto claim at a constant speed of 120 kilometers or 74 miles an hour, the 1.5 turbo 4-cylinder millicycle engine is quieter than the Tesla Model 3's motors. We didn't have one to compare, but if that is anywhere near true, then you can appreciate just how quiet this thing is. Supposedly it's clean as well. Li Auto claim it doesn't need a gasoline particulate filter because it's in line with China's 6B emission standards without one, and it will return just over 30 miles per gallon in a 2.5-ton SUV. The battery pack is a CATL NCM 611 pack with a total of 44.5 kilowatt hours and a usable amount of 39.2 kilowatt hours. In normal usage, just like the Li One, the engine will kick in to generate electricity for the motors at 20% state of charge. But unlike the Li One, you can override this function and let the car use the battery all the way down to 0% if you're not too far from a charge point, which is nice. You can also switch into hybrid mode earlier than Li One, now at 80% state of charge. So we do drive the L9 on rougher road to kind of see the kind of extremes of what its CDC and air suspension can do. But on the road, it is buttery smooth. It is super comfortable. This would be absolutely brilliant as a long distance cruiser. In fact, when I get an L9 on a longer loan, Tim, I'm actually I'm gonna see how far I can drive one I'm gonna see how much range I can get out of one. And having driven this and now seeing how comfortable and how nice it is to cruise in NOA, it doesn't seem like such a daunting task. The environmental visualization is much smoother in the L9 thanks to the dual Snapdragon 8155 CPUs. Cars now turn around corners, there are bicycle graphics, and people walk rather than eerily sliding down the road like some kind of twisted horror film. And all of this, along with your sat-nav, is displayed on the HUD as well as a large central touchscreen. We then got here and I jumped into a BMW X7 40M and then a GLS 454 Matic, and I drove it on some rough road around here. Then I jumped into the Li L9 and drove around the exact same road, and I was doing at least 20 kilometers more in this than I was those cars. Honestly, the ride, it's night and day. It's absolutely night and day. You can see the effects of the air suspension when braking hard, allowing the car to pitch forwards, but when pitching back up, the rear catches the car and returns it quickly to a steady state. Whilst with the air suspension disabled, you can see the car rocks back and forth after coming to a stop. Side by side, the difference is even more noticeable. The air suspension in the L9 is quick to return the car to a steady state, both front and back and side to side, whilst the continuous dampening control allows the suspension to absorb bumps as it rides over steadily. When you get to rough road, then the effects are more easily noticeable. We drove an X7 and the L9 down the same rough road. I then sat in the passenger seat whilst being driven relaxed inside. Now, the X7 is soft and arguably comfortable as it goes over the rough road. However, the air suspension allows the body to move around quite a lot, causing rebounds in the body after hitting a bump. The L9, on the other hand, whilst also being soft, its air suspension really suppresses the rebounds in the body roll and gives you a far more controlled and comfortable ride. Side by side, you can see the X7 is bouncing around a lot more than the L9. And inside, I found myself bouncing around in my seat far more in the BMW. The Li L9 is a much smoother affair. If we throw the GLS into the mix, the X7 and L9 CDC means hitting bumps is a lot softer, whereas the GLS is a lot firmer, causing some louder thuds. The body control of GLS is a lot better than the X7. It doesn't wallow around so much, but you also can't say the ride is as cushioned as the X7. The Li L9 manages to be both soft and controlled, which is mightily impressive. Now, none of these cars are marketed as off-road vehicles, but this rough road test allowed us to see what happens at the more extreme ends of their comfort-oriented suspension. I've had a fantastic day and driving this car has been an absolute dream. But we're going back to Beijing now. It's about an hour and a half drive. And I think that I'm going to let Tim drive while I relax in the back. If you don't know who Tim is, then you should go watch our video where Tim, the Li Auto product specialist, gives us a one-on-one tour around the exterior and interior of this L9. Anyway, he's driving and I'm in the back. Let's go! So we finished doing the driving for today and we're heading back to Beijing. I decided not to drive back, but rather to take the opportunity to enjoy the rear seat. So I have Tim chauffeuring me whilst I can get into a nice relaxing position. I can move the front passenger seat right out of my way and then get the thigh support on the go. And while I'm back here after recording, I might even indulge in a movie on the 3K OLED display with the spatial audio. Big thanks to Tim for inviting me, and a big thanks to Tim for driving me about. Okay, so I'm back to Beijing, or the outskirts of Beijing, after driving the Li L9 all day. And honestly, it's surpassed most of my expectations. You're gonna have to drive one to really feel what this car can do, especially with its CDC and air suspension. Anyway, I'm Will, that was the Li L9, and this is China Driven.